Hello and welcome to today's group session. And so the session is on, well, it was focused on the full moon in Leo, but because Pluto is making a big transit from Capricorn into Aquarius, that theme just really kept coming up for me. So that is what we're going to be focusing on today. So my name is Linda Marlene Eales, and I am a BodyTalk practitioner and an explorer. So I like to merge BodyTalk with astrology and the themes in astrology and looking at those macro influences and doing balancing focused on that. So today, I've actually prepared a slideshow for us, because there were just some themes that I felt that would be really helpful to actually share a little bit of an introduction for those that aren't that familiar with astrology, and perhaps you haven't come across information about this transit. So I'm going to share a little bit about that, and I'm just going to open up my screen here and start our, oh, there we are, presentation. So we have, yes, we have a full moon in Leo, and that is actually happening on the 25th. And that is, I've put EST. So depending on where you are in the world, that will happen at a different time. But and then we also have Pluto moving into Aquarius, as I had mentioned. So part of the reason that I wanted to bring that into focus as well is because during our last BodyTalk session, the new moon, it ended up that I ended up really bringing in, well, what came up was a lot of Pluto and Scorpio themes. So, and I was like, oh yeah, there's this big transit happening, but I didn't really, bring a lot into the introduction of the session. So, and then all of these themes came up. So I just thought, well, that's my wake up to actually really focus on the potential influence that this transition has from Pluto moving from Capricorn, which it's been in since 2008, into the sign of Aquarius. And so let's go into the next slide. So what I did was I just really brought in the planets and signs of these themes, so you can actually take a look at that. So one of the things is that Pluto today, being the 21st of January, is conjunct with the sun. So that means that they're very, very cozy on the chart in the sign of Aquarius, and they both just moved into Aquarius today. So they're both at 0 degrees. So when we're looking at an astrological chart, each sign is divided into 30-degree segments. So when a planet is moving into a sign, one of the places it has to pass through is 0 degrees, which really is like, when you think about tarot cards, it's the Fool. It's like an absolute new beginning. And it is, I've said it's like hitting the reset button. So here we've had this energy of Pluto in Capricorn, and I'll actually go into a few of those themes and how, we've seen that influence over the last 18 years, and then what that could potentially look like in Aquarius, and also looking back into the last time that Pluto was in Aquarius. So whenever there's a conjunction with the sun, the sun shines a light on whatever it's close to. And so in this case, it's close to Pluto. So Pluto is really, it's a universal planet. It's quite far from Earth. And so its influence tends to be more global, international, because of its distance from the Earth. So, but in this case, because the sun is conjunct with Pluto, it actually brings it into more, or it has the potential of bringing it more into a personal level. And so when we're looking at the archetypal qualities of Pluto, it's transformation. Like that's and and it wants to seek truth. And so when we're looking at, well, what is truth? Well, it just can be truth in terms of power holders. I think about, say, Donald Trump, for example, and what's been happening for him, and in the big reveal, in demanding the public demanding truth and inquiry demanding truth. And so that is and in order to transform. So on more of a personal level, wherever Pluto is in our chart, in, let's say, our birth chart, the sign that it's in, the house that it's in, typically means that throughout our lifetime, that is an area where we're going to be challenged. So, just something for you to keep in mind. And then, I mean, there's also, when we talk about transformation, it can be quite literally death and birth, but also it's metaphoric death, or death of the masks, death of the crutches that we are using, right? Like coping mechanisms. So that's why I say it's like this transformation, this big reveal, and it's also collective change. So because it's on a broader level, and pairing that with Aquarius is also very collective. It's about community. It's about people power. So it's going to amplify that, but also give the potential for change in that area, and also in technology. I'm laughing because when I had originally scheduled this, I was going to be doing this at 5 p.m. today live on Zoom, but then things happen. And so sudden change is, the planet of Uranus is one of the ruling planets of Aquarius. The other is Saturn. And Uranus is very much about quick change. And so it's being able to adapt to that change. So yeah, just some themes here. And then also just to bring in Pluto, it's, one of the other aspects as well. So we're looking at wealth. If we're looking at more of the traditional archetype, it's, Hades and the god of the underworld. So it's the gems, it's the wealth that can be, brought from the earth, and resources. So there's also, that interaction or dynamic with power and wealth, and often those two go hand in hand. And then looking at Aquarius, which I just touched on, and then finally in Capricorn. And I'm bringing in Capricorn because Pluto has just moved out of Capricorn and is moving into Aquarius. It'll actually be backing up a little later in the year, I think in September, and going retrograde, probably clean up a little bit of things that hadn't been quite transformed throughout the period since 2008, but then it goes fully into Aquarius. Well, let's just go into this. So here's the date. So we've got Pluto entering Capricorn. This started in November of 2022, back into Pluto enters Capricorn November 26, 2022. Oh, I'm just looking at more of the recent times, because it actually, not 2022, it was 2008. So I made an error on that. But anyway, Pluto entered Capricorn originally on November 26, 2008. So from 2008 to March 23rd of last year, Pluto was in Capricorn. And then it retrograded back into from Aquarius to Capricorn last June. And then today or yesterday, it entered into Aquarius. And so later this year, it'll be going, as I said, back into Capricorn, and then going back into Aquarius and staying in Aquarius until March the 8th, 2043. So, almost 20 years that it'll be within the sign of Aquarius. And then that's when it enters into Pisces. So what that gives us an opportunity to do is, well, hopefully, see, I'm having some technical difficulties. Good old Uranus and Aquarius. So there we are. So I just, put up a thought here. Capricorn governs rulers and authority structures. So again, looking at 2008 to now, oligarchies, plutarchies, these sort of top-down structures. We look at what's happened, financial crisis, the Greek debt crisis, Trump and, abuse of power, and then the pandemic, institutional, governmental, corporate control of the public, what you can and can't do, lots of anger about that, lots of conflict about that. So kind of those rumblings just before this transition from Pluto in Capricorn to Pluto in Aquarius to people power. And then looking at the last Pluto in Aquarius transit, which is 1777 to 1797, and some of the things that happened during that time. So the US Constitution, 1787, the theme of democracy, a rule of the people, for the people, and by the people. Whether that's exactly the deep truth or not, but it was the idealism of that that really came to the forefront. The French Revolution, the Industrial Revolution. So, big transformational times. So it's always interesting to look back in history, particularly when you have transits that last quite a long time. And then you can actually say, okay, what may we be looking at? And there's another thing, yes. So Pluto and Aquarius. So, I include the word transformation because that is definitely the biggest theme of Pluto through technology. So we've already seen AI and financial system change, Bitcoin, technology, connectivity, and how that started to change really with COVID and, connecting more online, but then how that can actually create more community in a different format, which is technology, it's innovation, which is very Aquarius, decentralizing power, another advent of technology, rapid change, instability, rebellion, restructuring of rules. So, people challenging rules, like this is the way it's been done, but is this the best way for us? And a rise of group consciousness. And sort of on the other hand of that can be this mob mentality. So it's really not just limiting it to sort of the more positive aspects, this age of Aquarius, but also, mob mentality, which can be the power of a group, not necessarily in its best expression. And then strength and community, and then finally going into, the qualities of this innovation and invention and exploration. So once again, with Pluto, it's looking at, we've already got sort of this innovation and invention, but is it serving us? How is it serving us? Is there power discords in that? So just some really interesting themes to consider. So, when I was initially doing this, it's like when we're looking at Pluto, often we're looking at sort of like, how is this affecting the bigger picture? But then it's to be able to bring it back into our own lives. And so, so I had sent out this chart earlier because what it does is it shows you, your sun sign or your rising sign, and it's probably good to look at both, where where Pluto falls in what house. And so wherever the house is, and what I've included here is not just the keywords, but also the area of transformation. So within this next 20-year period, for example, Aries in the 11th house, where is that going to be impacting Aries, or that transformation could be happening in friends, allies, benefactors, technology, social organizations, community. So those things may be going through a change for Aries. And so you get that idea, and you have that chart, so you can refer back to that. It's quite interesting just to see how that may be influencing you. And then just to bring it a little bit more specifically. So this is something also that for you guys, I like to explore when I keep getting hit with a concept or an idea over a period of time, often in relation to astrology, and then its, intersection with body talk. I want to explore it more. And so this Pluto conjunct Sun in Aquarius at 7 degrees or at 0 degrees, as I'd mentioned, it's like, it's about our own personal power. There's a opposition to the moon in Leo is also interesting, right? Because Leo is about our personality, and Leo is sort of, one of those larger than life, but very creative. So that there is this opposition. Is in a way, it's like shining a light on perhaps where we lack power. And so one of the things that has really come to my attention really over the last few months, it's just been in my face, is the power of words, our language, and how we choose language. And certain phrases really were kept coming up to me. And so what I've included here is the words we use, what we say to ourselves and to others can offer insight into what we believe about our power and the power others have over us. And so, what does this have to do with Pluto? Particularly in Capricorn, like everything, in that Capricorn is what is Capricorn rule? It's like authority, those that have authority over us. So, and oftentimes we're looking at institutions or governments, but we can even have those, of course we can, power dynamics within our own day-to-day lives with, say, bosses or colleagues or partners, family members. And so that's like, when you look at the eighth house and these interpersonal dynamics of power dynamics. And so this language, and so one of the things too, and I'll get into this, is in body talk, one of the balancings that we do is something called the sense of hearing. And this is like physical hearing, so how we're actually hearing, and also subtle hearing. So that can be clear audience, that can be hearing between the lines, like hearing what's not said. But it can also be what we're saying to ourselves and how we communicate, and that we're listening to how we communicate, even if it's not on a conscious level, and how that can reaffirm beliefs we have about the world. And so I'm just going to elaborate on that. Okay, so here we have a few choices of how we say things, right? So for example, somebody says, do you want to go ice skating this weekend? I can't. Or I don't do ice skating. Very, very different answer, very different energy with that, right? And I think there's a bit of an attitude the way I said I don't do ice skating, but it's like I don't want to go ice skating, or I can't go ice skating. And then, another comparison that I brought up here is, well, let me do this. Oh, will you just let me do this? Or, oh no, they're not going to let me do that, versus I will do this, or I will not do this. So what we're looking at here is, in that expression, are we giving our power to someone else? Are we having to, in a way, ask someone else? I can't. It's because someone won't let me. You won't let me. So the power is external, versus if I say I don't do something or I don't want to do something, there's more personal power in that. It's like, no, that's not something that I do. And it arises from a deeper place of confidence and belief. Same with I will. I will or I will not, versus, will you let me or you won't let me? Because then the power is either external or it's internal. So, it's not about sort of what's wrong or what's right. It's more about what these statements and how our language can actually give us, an insight into how we perceive our own power and how we're deferring perhaps to an external authority, even if that isn't explicit, even if it's not clear. So the I can't implies that there is an external authority, right? An external power not allowing or permitting us to do something. And at some level, you believe that you are not the authority. Whereas I don't implies that you have a choice and that you are firm in your decision, right? So you believe that you have the power to make a choice. And um, and I'm actually using I don't and I can't. Those weren't the original statements that came up. It was more let me or I'll let you. That was actually something that came up not too long ago. I was in a group situation and oh, I'll let you do that. And I was like, you will you? And it just really stood out for me because it had kept coming up in different contexts, or I even heard myself saying that. So, again, it's like let me implies that there is an external authority that you need to ask in order to do something, versus I will implies that you have a choice. And so there's more power in this. And so I'm actually just citing a research study. So, as I said, it's been coming at me in a variety of places. And one was in a YouTube video that I was listening to, and this study was cited, and it's that I don't versus I can't when empowered refusal motivates goal-directed behavior. So this whole study really talks about, and I mean the outcome of the study is that by saying I don't, it is 3 times more effective as saying no, and 8 times more effective as saying I can't. Because I can just feel in my body. And so if you even want to just verbalize that yourself, and but why am I sharing this with you, right? Because the conscious level of this, by consciously implementing this awareness, can actually help you to become more aware, or even just noticing when you're saying I can't or let me, versus I don't and I will or will not. That there may be some beliefs, or what you're telling yourself is that power is external to you, versus you have your own power and your own choices, and you know what you do and what you do not do. And so I just felt it was really insightful, and really does look at that deferring to someone else's authority in a simple choice of words, versus, owning your own power and authority. And then here we are for the group body talk session. So I'll just stop sharing my screen. And but I am going to elaborate a little bit on that, because, from a body talk perspective, so there's what are we aware of? So I've just shared this awareness at a conscious level so that you can actually consciously, if you so choose, make different choices or become aware of the language you're using and how that may be telling yourself something about what you believe, and or are you in deference to other people, or would you like to build more of your own personal power? And so that, starting at a conscious level is a good place to start, because it's the awareness. So then that actually can sort of filter into a deeper level. But then from the body talk perspective, one of the things that we could also look at is, well, what beliefs do I hold that are actually influencing those language choices? And, oftentimes these beliefs go back a long time ago. And even if we want to look at a generational level of people power. So, historically, there's really been a hierarchy of power. And historically, and even currently, like, we work for other people. And we grew up in homes where, we generally see the parents as the boss. or the elders as, so we are aware of that. And so what kind of beliefs, and then, or maybe we have older siblings that are the boss of us and we have to ask for permission. But, you know, so I guess some of the beliefs may be that I need to ask permission or I am powerless. So, and then how that expresses itself in how you respond and the language that we choose, right? So just it to me, it's very interesting. And then I also noticed that when I was in that group situation and someone said, "Oh, I'll let you do this," that it really triggered me. And so that's great because it's an insight for me. It's like, oh, I have a belief here. Um, so, you know, is it a belief that I'm powerless? Is it a belief that no one tells me what to do? That would be my very Aquarian rebellious qualities. So, but whatever the belief is, it is shining a light on something because I can feel a reaction to that. And so that gives me the gift of being able to then go, okay, there's something in this that wants to shift, that would like some to shine a light on it, to perhaps help to release and detach from whatever that attachment is that I have. So on that note, I'm going to focus in and we will start to do the session. So if you'd like, wherever you are, just know if you want to lay down, that's great, or just be comfortable. And I'm just actually going to have a sip of my tea before we begin the session. And then also, even though I'm doing this at a recorded level, you may have already thought about, you know, what you in the themes that I had presented in the invitation would like balanced, but it doesn't even have to relate to the themes, like just focusing on, you know, what would I like to feel more of? Like, where would I like to feel stronger? You know, yeah, like in any area. So if it's physical pain, if it's emotional, if it's financial security and security. So whatever area, just tune into that now, because even with a recording, you're already part of the energy if you're drawn to watching this. And so at some level, there'll be something here that is going to support new awarenesses for you. So yeah, a couple deep breaths as we tune in to and prepare for the BodyTalk session. So I'm going into my Mindscape, and for those that aren't familiar with Mindscape, it is a BodyTalk program method. It's actually a weekend course that teaches you to build an internal structure or workshop in order to access your intuition in a more formal way, in a structured way. And so that is the area that I'm going to go into in my mind's eye and invite the group energy in to do the session. And so when I do that, I have a number of different areas within Mindscape. And one of those areas is the library. And so the library is a very large, tall room, and many, many books on one of those sort of round walls, and then beautiful big windows. And there's like it morphs, it's like a crystal ball. So it's an access to all kind of information. But also what's coming up is a lot of electricity. And when I tap into or drawn to that electricity, in bringing the group energy in, it's that quality of Uranus, as the planetary qualities of Uranus being you know, electrical and based in technology and this kind of sudden change. And so that's the energy that's coming in more as a overarching theme, at least initially. And so it's actually quick change. and adaptability. And so when I say adaptability, it is not limited to, we're in the library, but that's not limited to the mind level. It's really a holistic adaptability, mind, body, spirit, emotion, to this quick change. So there's something else that's coming in, and it is the artificial intelligence that has really just is moving like a wave through the globe in its rapid change. And so and that, it's adaptable. So it's adapting, it has feedback loops. So, and that's coming in because it's not so much about the artificial intelligence, it's about our ability to adapt, to have feedback loops to this change and transformation. And so I'm smiling because I'm just getting this image of the first astrological house, but Pluto. And so Pluto has manifested in my mind's eye as like the king of cool, really. So Pluto's like almost slinking into the first house, the energy. And so what is the first astrological house? The house of Aries, new beginnings. Oh yeah. So that's really interesting because, Pluto's just moved into Aquarius. But because it's at the 0 degree, it relates to new beginnings. And so that's where that first house kind of energy is coming in here. So Pluto is really, yeah, as I said, sort of slinking in to this first house energy. And so I'm going to work with this a little bit more, the visualizations of this. So Pluto starts going over to like boxes and like looking inside. What's in there? It's like, I want to see what's going on, like what's inside of things. So there's some exploring happening here. And so one of the areas of exploration is ego. And so that's my focus here right now, is that's where we're going to begin more formally in the session. And there's a permissions balancing coming up here. And so when I say ego, I'm also getting this Sun Leo energy. So the planet, the ruling planet of Leo is the Sun. And it's also related to the heart and heart energy and a heart chakra, heart meridian, and our individuation. So here we have this ego energy and the Sun, and we're going into a permissions balancing in relation to our ego. And so we're working at an all level permission. So the permissions is to express my individuality. So permission to express my individuality. That's our permission statement. And it's also at this consciousness level. So it's like a consciousness of individuality. And when I go into that layer of it. This also comes up in your eyes, okay? So, and it's not your eye, it's like the light in your eyes, the spark in your eyes. So that, what lights you up, and expressing that energy, that individuality. Okay. So we're anchoring this into your heart for individuation, for balancing this permissions. But we're not going to tap that out. I'm going to bring that into a parcel. And so for those that aren't familiar with BodyTalk, when I'm doing a session, we're really working on these like formulas. We're kind of putting together a formula of information that is ready to help to bring in new awarenesses. So that's the first part of this formula, and we're going to move on. So no further impermissions. Now we're going into, we're actually going into a group matrix. So when we talk about matrix, we'll talk about matrices in a couple different ways in BodyTalk, but in a group matrix, what we're looking at is like a group energy balancing. In this case, it's like you within a group. So we're not necessarily, well, we might be balancing a group, but I haven't determined that yet. But it's like how you are interacting with a group and to harmonize in some way, to balance in some way that interaction. Okay. And I'm not sure yet, so I'll elaborate on that, but that's the general focus of this. And so we're going more specific. So what's coming up here is a group, the group being your local community. So local community. And I'm not getting more specific on that, okay? So whatever that means for you, you within your local community. So that could be a condominium building, that can be, a village and a neighborhood, it can be a block, whatever that is for you. It could even be a church community or like an association type of community. So I'm not getting specifics, oh, pardon me, for what that is. The priority is to balance you to whatever that local community is. And so when I'm saying those things, if something really is like sort of drawing you, then that is probably what it is that we want to balance with that. So and it's actually so one of the ways we can balance you to a community or a group is to either create or strengthen bonds. And so that is what we're going to be doing in this, is it's actually creating bonds. So I yawn a lot when I'm doing this work too, if you're new. That's why I'm yawning. It's not because I'm tired. It's just already starting to process what's coming up in the session for the group. So this group matrix, local community, going into bonds. So it's like you, and we've got, is it forming? It's not forming bonds. It is actually strengthening bonds at the physical and mental levels. Oh, pardon me. So physical and mental, mind level bonds to the community. So oftentimes we're looking at someone within the community, perhaps like someone who's a leader in the community, but that is not coming up as a priority. It is like whatever or whomever within the community, those bonds need to be strengthened for you. That is what's coming up. So this physical and mental strengthening of bonds. And there's some details on this, and the detail, there's this definition of your confidence. pardon me, confidence. And it's further to self-expression. How you express yourself, which goes back to this first permissions to express your individuality. Is there further on this group matrix balancing? No. So once again, I need to put that into another parcel. And there's a definition. It's really more like a satellite that's coming in, and the satellite is your heart. Pardon me. So it's your heart, and it's open-hearted connection. So it's open-hearted connection. Okay. So is there further on this group matrix balancing now? We have another item coming in. So I'm going back into that visual I had of super cool Pluto. So when I say that, it's like he almost looks like he's coming out of the 70s. And he is coming up as a he. I suppose he could come up as a she, or a mix. But it's like he's got these floods on, and these really groovy shoes. He's almost got a cat-like quality to him, and sort of longer hair, and this really super cool leather jacket. And he's got this slink. And so he's just, that energy is drawing me right back into the first astrological house. Oh, I'm actually getting a specific quality here. So I'm just going to review my chart here. So, and it's personality. So, so Pluto wants to look at personality. Okay, so first house. Oh, so Pluto is, again, it's like this transformative adaptability. Oh yeah. So there's, as soon as I tap into that adaptability, what comes up is actually a balancing of rigidity. So there's an irony in this. In that, so when we're looking at personality and then rigidity, so rigidity is what, right? Like at a physical level, it's like not being able to be flexible, or feeling kind of contracted, rigid. And then going into this, in a way, the truth, right? So what do we hold to be so true that we're actually rigid about it, about ourselves or about the world, and how that actually creates a rigidity and a limitation in self-expression. And so when we're holding on to a very strong belief, and I'm going to see if I can qualify this if I need to. So when I've got a really strong belief, but that belief just keeps hitting up against other people or other beliefs, people keep challenging that belief, it can really make us feel rigid, and it can keep triggering us into at an emotional level, at a subconscious mind level. So the stress or conflicts within our relationships, how we perceive the world, is being limited. So this is about helping to transform that rigidity, that self-awareness. And the word that is coming in to support the awareness of that is should. So where we would use should, it should be this way, you should do this, it shouldn't have happened. And anytime there's a should, there's often a lot of judgment or attachment that is coming in with that, right? And sometimes blame. It should be a different way, and there's maybe a personal sort of affront or an injustice. So it's not to say something should be other ways, but it's where it's limiting your personal expression, your personality, um, and the ability to have more awareness and to get into the more insight into things that perhaps have been hidden before. So to bring more awareness to that. Okay, so there's another. Uh, so the priority is to actually bring in a from a body talk technique. It's like a multi-layered formula on this balancing, and at at a physical level, the focus here is the thalamus, your thalamus. So thalamus is also known as the sun, right? So it is like a major center for incoming information, sensory input. And and then it's like, well, what is my world? What do I believe about the world? What are my attitudes and beliefs? What are my perceptions? And this incoming information coming in saying, well, what does this mean for me? And if there's a rigidity there, then we may not be experiencing to the fullness, and then we may not be able to respond to the fullness. So that is where uh, the Seedry is coming in relation to this rigidity. And also, again, it's like keeps bringing me to your eyes and your vision, right? So your vision, your ability to see and your ability to perceive. Um, and then also with that vision is not only to see and perceive, but also to envision. Um, so supporting the ability to see into the future, to plan, to envision your purpose. Okay. So, um, okay, so there's no more details on that formula. And we don't have another link, so we're going to actually we're going to tap this in. Okay, so we're going to I'm going to ask you to place your hands over your heart, or one hand over your heart, as we began in that permissions balancing on the ego, and permission to express your individuality. And it's that consciousness of individuality and anchoring that into your heart. So that is where the formula began, and that is where we will tap this in. So taking deep breaths, tapping over your head, your heart, and your navel. And then once again, okay, so let's find out what's next. I'm just gonna check in on Mr. Cool Pluto um, into Mindscape, and yes, tap into that first formula is no longer a priority. We're going into the next phase. Okay, so the next thing that's coming in is the Wei Qi. And Wei Qi is a protective energy that runs just at the level and just below the level of your skin. I mean, really, you could think of it, Wei Qi as like it's protection. So physical, psychic, emotional, climate. Um, but it's also an intelligent energy in that it helps you to discern what comes in and what stays out. And it goes not only at the level of your skin, but right through your, respiratory system, right through your whole digestive system, and then even down to the tissue and cellular level. And so we kind of get into those micros of like the cell has a Wei Qi around it in addition to the cellular membrane. So it's quite a comprehensive, amazing energy. And what is coming up is more specifically is emotional Wei Qi. So this is other people's emotions and your ability to have protection, but also to synthesize. Okay, maybe I can have that coming in, and so I'm not going to elaborate on this because the session itself will probably do that, but it is with that focus on balancing the Wei Qi to other people's emotions, and the emotion is fear. So it's more specifically to balancing the Wei Qi to other people's fear. But it's not fear about anything in particular. It is just other people's fear. And oh yeah, it's like as soon as I open that up, it is the frequency of fear, or and I'm actually getting it's like the frequencies of fear. So fear as an emotion, but fear also as a frequency, or different frequencies. And so how frequencies, our own frequency in a way frequencies can attract, right? So our beliefs have a frequency, our attitudes, our perceptions, our experiences, our cells, all the different areas of our body, everything has a frequency, and those frequencies, what a frequency likes, it'll resonate with other frequencies, right? So there's something about that as well here. So going into the emotional frequency Wei Qi balancing, and I'm going into a subsession on this. And so this is taking me into the 5 elements. And so I'm talking about the traditional Chinese 5 elements. And so these are, you can think of them as uh, phases. They are energies that really, these 5 energies are a framework for looking at everything, both in our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual bodies, but also in the universe. So it's a means of looking at the interactivity and dynamic interrelationships. So we're going into this 5-element balancing in relation to strengthening to emotional other people's fear frequencies. And within the 5 elements, we're going into the metal element. So metal relates to the season. So each of the 5 elements relates to a different season. The earth element sort of being the time between seasons or late summer. And the metal element relates to the season of autumn or fall. So it's like one of the qualities is a contraction. So it's like things are contracting to prepare for the maximum contraction of winter. And it's also like a letting go in a way. So the emotion associated with the metal element is grief. And it is related to the lungs and the large intestine. So when you think about their bodily functions of, taking breath in, taking life in, and letting life go, letting breath go so that we can be prepared for the next breath in. And that also relates to being able to accept life, accept what is happening, and also to generate and distribute qi and energy throughout the body, including the wei qi. And then the large intestines, again, about being able to digest and let go of what we no longer need. And so the symbol of the metal element is a mine shaft and with a gold nugget on top. And so what that really looks at is, well, it's like being able to sift through and release to get to the gold. So the wisdom of our experiences, clearing out the extraneous to get to the wisdom of our experiences and taking that with us and letting go of the attachments to what no longer serves us. So in this way, there's a real transformational quality about the metal element, and there's, it draws and can correlate with the Pluto energy as well. So Pluto is very much that transformative type of energy, like what is no longer serving me here. So that's the metal element that we're going into, and I'm just going to find out if we want to narrow that focus. Nope. So we're going to stay with all of what I've just shared, the metal element, in relation to this protective shield, and we're linking the metal element within the elements to the water element. So I had mentioned the water element relates to winter. So it's, going inward to the core. That's its movement, its maximum contraction. It's sort of deeply nourishing. It relates to the kidneys, to the bladder energy, to our essence, and also by that sort of very nature, it also relates to the emotion of fear and fear for survival. So, and what's the sort of natural expression of fear, right? Fear is to give us the energy and activity for survival at its most basic level. It's, it's not just that, but, what is good for us and what isn't, and moving towards what is good for us and moving away from the energy to move away from that which isn't good for us, which no longer serves us, right? So we're balancing this letting go process to distill into the gold of our experiences and linking that into this deep nourishment of the kidney, bladder, water element. And there's no further details on this, but there's other than a definition of harmony. Yeah, no further definition on harmony. And I need to parcel that 5-element metal to water balancing. And there is another link, and this is actually going into a body chemistry. So for body chemistry and body talk, what we do is we use saliva as a means of getting a read of what's happening at a neurochemical level in the body. And so usually we use a little Q-tip, and I don't actually have any on my desk right now. So I'm just going to use my very clean baby finger. And we take a saliva sample from under our tongue. You can place a little bit behind your ear, over your thymus gland, which is just above your heart, and then into your navel. So we use the navel as it really represents sort of our external connection, what out there is impacting what's in here. And so I'm going to get more details on body chemistry. And so are we going to microbes? It's toxins. And when I get to toxins, I have a satellite to the sense of hearing at the subtle level. And I discussed that earlier on in the session. So that subtle level of hearing, the clear audience, our own thoughts, listening to our own words, our own thoughts, being able to tune into our surroundings and, hear the unsaid, all of those types of things. So there's something about this toxin balance and subtle level of hearing. And it is toxins, and I'm not getting more specific on the toxins themselves, other than we are looking at an external factor that is related to these toxins, and we're going into so when I start to look at external factors in BodyTalk, I have a lot of different charts that I'm using and reading from, except that I've memorized most of them. So I start to ask, okay, so is it a time? Does it relate to an event? Is it a person? And then a number of other questions. And person is the one that's coming up, but it's actually people. So it's, okay, so it's people's fear, but it's actually more specifically in the form of complaints. So when people are complaining or whining, and so however you sort of see that, whatever your experience is of that, that is what's coming up that is toxic, complaining or whining. And that is an expression of fear. And it's interesting because when I think about that, it's like I connect back to the water element. And one of the qualities of the water element is an expression, is complaining. It's like, so when we're complaining, oftentimes that complaint is actually, it's coming from fear, but we complain as a means of expressing deeper fear. So that is coming up, and it's like this subtle level of hearing, of listening to those complaints at that subtle level. And so it's not only other people's complaining, it could even be your own complaining. So some repetitive stuff that is potentially coming out that is actually impacting your Wei Qi. So this is great that it's coming up this way. So is there further more specific or details on this? No. And that is the subsession. What is coming up for that Wei Qi subsession is to actually link it into the gallbladder energy, gallbladder qi. So gallbladder qi is one of the most yang or sort of outward energies. So in that sense, it relates to our Wei Qi. And our boundaries. So it's like I need to sort of plug this into that gallbladder qi to energize that qi in relation to this balancing for the Wei Qi, strengthening to other frequencies of fear. And really I'm sensing it's like this, your frequencies of fear and other people's frequencies of fears, and helping to balance that so that there is more protection and less reactivity in the Wei Qi. So we're going to tap this in. So it's I'm going into it's like a sattvic or consciousness level circulation plug-in in the Wei Qi, or in the gallbladder qi. Okay. And so, yes, it's like awareness of function in relation to Wei Qi. So to tap this in, the hand position that comes up is just over your power chakra. So your solar plexus, in between your upper rib cage. And then you can join me in tapping with deep breaths. So the focus on balancing your Wei Qi for protection of the frequencies and emotion of other people's fear. And also, so first is through that metal to water balancing within the 5 elements and harmony, and then into balancing at more of a body chemistry, toxins level, people's fear being expressed through complaining, through whining, and I'm doing it around as it relates to that sense of hearing both uh, subtle level, hearing yourself think, hearing your own complaints, and then hearing other people's, maybe even spinning their complaints around in your head, whatever that is, right? Helping to bring some balance to that for overall Wei Qi, balance to other people's fear. And that is today's session. So thank you very much for joining me. The next session that is coming up, I think it's going to be, I'm just actually going to take a quick look at my calendar. I believe that it is the 8th of, well, the next new moon is the 9th of February, new moon in Aquarius. That's on a Friday. So I'm not 100% sure of when I will do the next group session, but that is the theme. And so I will send out notification of that. And in the meantime, thank you very much for joining. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It's always great to have the energy supporting, getting this type of work out. You take care, and I look forward to connecting the next time. Bye for now.